Welcome, everyone, to this, the third in the series of the webinars by Annie from Autism and ADHD about understanding make crime, gambling harm and fraud amongst the neurodivergent community. I'm Kath from the Wellbeing team at the Charity for Civil Servants, and just a very quick introduction about the charity before I hand over to Annie. Just as a reminder, because I imagine this is something that's quite familiar to many of you, we are the charity for anyone who is or who has ever been a civil servant. So we will be your charity for the rest of your life. We've been around for 140 years this year, which seems quite amazing, really. Obviously, we've evolved over time, and we provide support for caring, mental health, well-being, and financial issues, including financial assistance. And we also have lots of resources on our website as well. So there will be a recording of this session that will be made available on our website in due course. It may take a few days because we've had some issues in that, because of the way the teams that we're using works, the recording does show some names on there of participants, so we have to take those out before we can get it onto the website. So it's a little bit more time consuming than it might be, but keep a lookout for it because it will be there. As will, I think we've got one of the previous three up at the moment, and last week's one will be up soon. And finally, from me, please use the Q&A function to put any questions that you have for Annie in there, which she'll address as many as she can at the end of the session. Please don't use the chats at all. So use the Q&A whether you've got actual questions or whether you want to make a comment about something. So that's great, everything from me. So I'm absolutely delighted now to hand over to Annie, and I'll see you again at the end of the session.
Hi everyone. As always, it's an absolute pleasure to be here and to do the third training in our stream of training specifically around money and neurodivergence and how different it can be for us as our part of our community. For those of you that don't know who I am, I'm the founder and chief exec of Autism and ADHD. We work all over the world. It's an absolute privilege to be able to do that. And we are commissioned by civil service to provide support and training, which we are very proud to have that partnership with you guys. So let's get going. This training does stand on its own, so you can watch this without having to watch the other two that have already gone through. But if you're in a position to watch all three, they do feed very nicely in all together. So once they're all up on the portal, I would definitely recommend trying to watch all three if you haven't done that. So this particularly focus is on protecting neurodivergent children and adults from exploitation, with practical solutions and tools to spot warning signs and respond effectively. So this is very much about awareness, prevention, early intervention and support strategies. By the end of the session, you will understand what make crime, gambling harm and fraud actually are, recognise why for ND individuals they may be at an increased risk, identify the warning signs, know how to respond and support safely, and understand the reporting pathways. Sadly, these things they seem to be growing, make crime, gambling, harm and fraud, because of internet usage, and that's making it even harder to grasp exactly what's going on. But let's give you a starting point, and then you can always access us as we move forward. Many of you will know that this is one of our big sort of things around splitting neurodivergence into these four blocks, because it makes it easier to split it out and understand. So we talk about emotional overwhelm and sensory processing, imagination fracture, which is executive function, and language of assumption, which is crucial about where we go. So let's get started. Why the increased risk can occur. Some of it is that individuals may take language really literally, and they can misinterpret that around that person wanting to be their friend, or if the language in the publicity around gambling isn't clear, it can make people do things that afterwards they can regret. And equally with fraud online especially is so hard to spot now. And from a neurodivergent perspective, that can make things really, really difficult in this space. We can often trust really easily and struggle to read the hidden intentions where that language is slightly fluid, and again the language is not clear. It's very easy for some of our community to misread that and think that this person is their friend when actually they're being really, really controlling. Many of them want friendship and belonging but struggle with that relationship build. And so if they've got someone coming to them taking control of that, then there's a real vulnerability there. Unfortunately, the experience of loneliness, especially in a lot of our adults, is really high, and that's really sad. And I think it's something that as a society we've really got to work on. But also being bullied and being able to spot that you're being bullied and that you shouldn't have to put up with it is something that can be really, really hard. Obviously, for those of us with ADHD, including me, struggling with impulse control can make anything to do with managing money at times really difficult, and also masking just how difficult things are because they're desperate to fit in. So, as it says, the risk is about social dynamics, not intelligence, and it's really, really important to remember that. We'll often get, well, you're really clever, so I don't understand why you find this so hard, why you can't do these things, why you didn't spot. It's like it's got nothing to do with how academically able we are. We are just as vulnerable in these sorts of spaces with a Mensa-based IQ to an IQ that would fall into a learning disability space. So please be aware of that for those of you that are supporting that, and equally for those of you that may feel, and certainly it's where I would have been, I'm a reasonably intelligent person, and yet I still struggled with money management on my own level when I was younger. And it's very easy then to feel really stupid and not understand why am I struggling with this. All right. And that's another reason to go back and look at the other videos, because we really do unpack that in there. Our need and understanding of emotional overwhelm in this is crucial, because if we don't understand it, a lot of it doesn't make any sense. All right. So that calm persona with the first face of having all of that lovely headspace to be able to make better choices and better decisions is often lost by flitting between phase 2 and 3 of being completely overwhelmed or masking. Sadly, there is a very high percentage of our adults that are living on their own. Maybe not sadly for all of them. I think some of our adults prefer to be living on their own, but it does again can make them quite vulnerable in some situations, in that they may not have another trusted person that they can ask a question about, like, is this email safe? Or this person is trying to be my friend and I don't think he's okay. And it's that network of people to be able to check in with and say, I'm a bit confused with this. So these things are really important. So how do we spot the mic crime? All right, the mic crime is not really talked about so much nowadays. It was a very big thing probably about 15, 20 years ago. There was hate crime, and hate crime first came in as the two terminologies. If you search hate crime, you'll still get loads and loads of stuff come up, but hate crime as a term seems to just have been absorbed into hate crime, and yet it is something quite different. Hate crime was introduced around racism and difference, whereas hate crime is really fallen under that coercive control banner. And it can sometimes be really difficult to spot, especially for those in our community that are vulnerable in this space. So borrowing money repeatedly, that's the sort of thing, these are the things that you need to be looking out for. Is someone constantly asked, can I borrow some money from you today? Can I borrow some money from you today? But then you never get it back. they go, oh, I'm your mate. Of course, that's what you do when you've got mates and friends. You help them out if they haven't got any money for food or whatever. Sadly, we see a lot of it when we've got groups of young people in supported housing, or even in group supported accommodation, where the young people will be chasing each other. You have to remember they'll know when it's benefit day, when those people get their PIP money in, or uh, any sort of money that's coming in, their universal credit days, and that's when they'll go and chase them. All right, so just keep an eye out for the patterns about where that contact comes in. Using someone's home as a hangout for antisocial behaviour, being asked to oh, can you look after this parcel for me? Oh, we've got this thing coming, I haven't got room in my flat for it, can we leave it here? And it could be stolen goods, it could be drugs, and so you have to be really on it, looking for these sorts of things, pressuring them to shoplift. Like, well, if you want to be part of our gang, then you're going to have to do that. You're going to have to go in and steal. Those things happen a lot, unfortunately. Sharing embarrassing content, so they might take pictures of them, and then share them on Facebook or social media or TikTok, and be basically taking the mickey out of them, or take pictures of them in their shower, and then start to share them. Oh, well, we're mates, aren't we? So that's all right. All of that sort of stuff, forcing them to hand over benefits or cards. Grooming, gang culture, and trafficking is a serious concern. One of the things to watch out for is certainly with your younger people. If they go to skate parks is one of the places. So county lines, gangs coming into your particular area. It's something that's quite a big concern for us here in Suffolk, because they come up from London and we're always on the watch out for it. But they will go to places like skate parks. And if the kids are on their own, they'll start to groom them. And it will be, God, we're having a burger. Do you want a burger? Let's buy a burger. And then after a few burgers, it'll be, can you deliver this for me on the way home? And it will be a drug package or something along those lines. And the young person initially might go, no, I'm not allowed to do that. My mum's told me I'm not allowed to do that. And it's like, well, we bought you all these burgers, so you have to pay us back now. And they can get themselves into right old pickle. We had a situation where we nearly lost a young person. We were literally 10 minutes to him being taken away by a circus. And we'd literally in that afternoon, various bits of information had come through, and we joined the dots together. And it was like, oh my Lord. And we were able to phone the police, and the police got him before he went, because they said, we're going to give you a job. Come on, you can come with us, have a job. And his mum was quite happy, because, she said, well, he's with his mates, he's gone to the circus, or he's gone to the fair. And she thought he was safe, and he wasn't safe. So we have to be really careful about these things. These are all signs for you to watch out for, both for your young people, your children, maybe also looking out for somebody in the office and keeping an eye on them, just to make sure that they're not being pressured in this way. Equally, if you've got older parents who may be in a similar situation, you'd be surprised, maybe you wouldn't be surprised to know just how far it can spread. As much as we're talking about ND here, there's an awful lot of people that are vulnerable to these sorts of things. So looking out for a sudden new best friend, all right, who isolates them, starts to not allow them to see other people. And like we say, taking them out and going, oh, we're going to bowling tonight, and then getting there and going, oh, I haven't got any money. You've got some money, haven't you? Because it's benefit day for you. So perhaps you can pay for tonight, and we'll give you the money back next week. And they never get the money back. All right. Perhaps they're suddenly being secret about things, secret about their money, secret about their emails, secret about things that are in their flat or whatever. Money seems to be going missing, possessions are going missing. Maybe they start getting anxious before meeting that person. There changes in their behavior and mood, unexplained injuries, being dropped off late at night. All of these things are little or even big red flags that something isn't okay. and that they may need further investigation and support. I think it's really important to consider as well, we have a system for letting another member of the family know that you are in trouble and you don't know how to get out of it. So when when I used to work within youth offending, there was always that question with young people that were at the risk of, that one next step would take them into a very dangerous situation. And it was like, how do you handle that when you're in a group and you're being egged on? Oh, come on, we'll go and steal that thing out of the shop. We'll do this. And you're like, I know I mustn't do that, but I don't know what to do. If I say I'm going to leave, I'm going to be in big trouble in school tomorrow or at work tomorrow. And so we set them up with a system whereby they choose a number or a letter or a symbol, whichever is easiest for them, depending on their phones. And they literally text that one letter to a trusted adult. And the person in receipt of that knows that that person is then in trouble. And they will phone them and go, hi, sweetie, how are you doing? Well, okay is often what you'll get, but it can come across as quite a nervy okay. And it'll be, right, well, your grand's been taken ill, so I'm going to have to come and pick you up. Can you just tell me where you are and I'll come straight away? You're just going to have to say to your friends, you're really sorry, but your grand's gone into hospital, so we need to come and get you. And so we always say, don't, if they say where they are, and that's not where you thought they were, this is not the time to have that conversation, right? Or they'll never phone you again if you tell them off because they're not where they said they were going to be. It's a case of, okay, I'll be there in 10 minutes and I'll come and get you. And don't, say to your mates, really sorry, but mum's coming to pick me up because, my grandson's gone into hospital. So the emergency phone number is important to get themselves out of these situations, because many of them can feel that they're getting sucked into something but not know how to get the way out. Good old gambling. Oh my lordy, are we not completely and utterly swamped by it now? It's on every advert, especially if you like watching sport. It's just everywhere. And when it comes to neurodivergence, the buzz you get off the back of gambling is huge, and it is really, really hard. So gambling includes all these things and then some. There was some things I had to look at. I didn't know what skim betting in games was. I had to go and research that, and I still don't know that I could explain it to you, actually. So please go. Same with gaming loot boxes. They were another thing that were completely new to me. So research them if it's something you're not sure about. So knowledge is power in this space. All right, the more you know, the more you can help someone or equally yourself. But as I say, it's everywhere now, even in the supermarket with the lottery cards, these scratch cards that are £1, even in the lotto apps. If you buy your lottery ticket and you think, right, I'm just going to buy a lottery ticket every week, that'll be fine. And then there's all these games in the lottery app that you can buy for 50p or £1, and before you know where you are, you've spent an absolute fortune. So online betting, game and loot boxes, casino apps, they're everywhere. The sports betting is all over the place. Crypto trading platforms are equally caught up within the gambling industry. Problem gambling, to be clear, is about loss of control, not just money spent. All right. And it's all connected in, especially from an ADHD perspective, of looking at it as it gives you a dopamine hit that you're like, yeah, let's see if I can win. You can see people in betting shops watching for the horses, watching, oh, come on. The excitement that you can get off it is huge. But we talk about good and bad dopamine. This stuff here is bad dopamine. It's not the sort of dopamine that you want to become addicted to. And we really need to get hold of it and know what to do. And looking at where we can swap that bad dopamine into good dopamine by doing something else that gives us the same hit. Okay. So why they may be particularly at risk is all of this stuff here. So the impulsivity, especially from an ADHD perspective, massive hyper focus on winning. Some of us are passionate about needing to win, and it becomes an obsession, even on something like Monopoly or and if you can start to see the signs of you having a child that is desperate to always win and cannot deal with losing, it is something to really get your head around and to start working on at home. Difficulty in being able to understand probability, what are the chances of me winning this? 1 in 3 million. Not really understanding what that means. That desire for predictable reward patterns, online isolation, because boy, you can do it sitting in your home or in the car, in the park. You can gamble now from anywhere. Right? It's not like where you used to have to go to a betting shop to put your Grand National bet on, which was a big thing in our house, I have to say. But the rest of the year we didn't go anywhere near it. But you won't have to do that anymore. You can do it anywhere, at any time of the day or night, in any country that you're in. And that's what makes it so dangerous. Also, the lovely black and white thinking around that probability. Well, I haven't had a win for a while, so I must be due a win. So it's worth me betting some money this weekend. Purely on that basis, for no other reason. And of course, that odd time where the back end of the app or whatever will give you a win just to keep you hanging in there. Oh, I got a win today. It might only be a couple of quid, but it was still a win. So you think, oh, right, I won. Perhaps I'll win a fiver next time. And it'll keep going. And this is why we're so at risk, because our brains are not helping us. It is a neurodivergent brain issues. All right. So warning signs of gambling harm: when someone is slipping into a really dark place with it, they start borrowing money. Right? Secretive phone use, irritability when unable to gamble, same as with the gaming. All right, it shows itself in a very, very similar way. Obsession with odds or systems, and don't forget, some of them, from a neurodivergent perspective, they'll be very good with the maths element of it and working out odds and creating gambling systems. And I think there was even a series on it, an episode on Inspector Morse, where they were coming up with the odd systems with the gambling at Oxford University. Neglecting responsibilities, all of a sudden they can't do things. They're not looking after themselves. Self-care is going, lying about their spending. It's like, well, I gave you this money, where's it gone? Oh, I don't know. Or, oh, I lent it to so and so, or I think I lost it. No, not being clear about where that money has gone. It's all becoming a bit cloaks and dagger, and they're getting really tired because they're sitting up at 3 a.m. gambling on their phones. All right, so all of these things are signs for you to watch out for. Also, I think for you as an individual, if you start to recognize in yourself that you're doing these things, then you are going down a black hole with the gambling, and need to seek for external support to get yourself out of the hole before it becomes really serious. Now, the fraud situation is just everywhere, and the ability to keep 100% safe online, I think, is almost virtually impossible. We turned on our Netflix last night and it was being watched by somebody in Japan. We didn't know they were in Japan at the time, but they'd got into our Netflix and were watching it. And we went through to Netflix and got it sorted out. But they'd got into the back end of it and found a way to watch our Netflix. Sharing is great, but there is a limit. And so things like this are all signs of, right, let's get in there and change passwords and everything again, which I know is a pain in the bum, but keeping on top of it is really important. So the types of fraud that can include, so the romance scams, again, there's movies that have been made and TV programs, dramas that have been made about romance scams. But, I think there was a period of time where we were all getting these sorts of text messages as in the image, not necessarily I love you, but I'm stuck in France, I can't get out, can you send some money? And it's not from them at all. They're just messaging, trying to get you to send money off. Again, going back to some of our adults can feel quite lonely and they're looking for boyfriends and girlfriends, and it can be the same with young people, I have to say, desperate for a romance, and they get sucked into this space. And before you know where you are, they're paying for everything, or they're giving them money. So be careful with all of that. Online friendship scams, even dating apps can be full of this stuff. As much as the dating app industry try very, very hard to keep out of it, and keep their systems safe, that you do need to have your wits about you. Fake competitions where you have to pay to enter and you think you're going to get a big prize and then you don't. Um, and even although the big ones on the TV have obviously had to go through a massive due diligence thing, like the ones for the big houses and those sorts of things, they're the sort of things that will come in, and they'll replicate that with what looks like exactly the same thing, and you can get caught up with those sorts of bits and pieces. Phishing texts and emails, fake job offers, social media impersonation, catfishing. Neurodivergent individuals may take the communication at face value. They're not going to look beyond that. We have certain rules in our house with our middle son, Tom, Tom is 24/7 care, significant LD, and his autism is very highly impacting on him. And anything that he is using online, we have access to. We check it at least once a day, if not more. He is actually getting very good at spotting fake emails and fake text messages, and he'll just screenshot it and send it to us as soon as it comes through and go, what do I do with this? And we go, block it, take it away. And because we've spent a lot of time with him, going through how to keep himself as safe as we can, and making sure that all of his laptop security is up to date, and phones, etc. It is about sitting beside them and helping them through it, rather than just assuming they're going to know what they're doing, because most of the time they don't. We had a period of time where Tom was getting scammed by Russian pornography, and I think he was initially maybe a little bit confused. That's not where he is at all. We said, Tom, you mustn't speak to these ladies, all right? In fact, even if they were ladies, I said, because they're just after your money. Well, they're not having my money, he said. So that was it. But it's like these things just can come out of nowhere, and you have to have your wits about you, and keep an eye on where they are. So fraud, red flags as well, urgent pressure. You've got to act now, or you're going to lose this offer. Act now or you'll lose this. Act now and get a bonus. All of those things are good keys, and you need to keep your eyes about you. Requests for secrecy. Telling them, you mustn't tell anyone about this. This is a special offer. We're only offering it to you, nobody else. Again, upping that pressure to buy, that you are a special person. Not everybody's been offered this. All of those things are really key. Requests for gift cards or crypto, please don't go there. Someone moving the conversation off a trusted platform and saying, right, you've got a trusted platform, and they're going, oh, well, actually, because this is a special offer thing, I need to take you to this platform here. So if you can click on that link and it'll take you through there, then we can talk there. All right. Don't do any of that. All right. I think and again, it's teaching people what those things are. It's really, you have to be quite pedantic with it, because if not, it will slip through. You're the only one that understands me. Oh, my lordy. But these are the phrases that somebody from a neurodivergent space may well pick up and think, oh, that's really nice. I don't get told that at all. Perhaps I need to help this person. And so these phrases are key things, red flags. We certainly call them red flags in our house to help with the kids. Even our grandchildren now, it's the same conversation. You need to spot this, don't go there. That's a big no. And they know enough because it was drummed into our children, their children have been had it drummed into them as well. And so they screenshot and send if there's anything that comes through on their phones that they're unsure of what to do next. So the online grooming and overlap, people think it's just one thing, but everything connects together. These guys are smart. I always say if they weren't working in fraud and were working in legal stuff, they'd all be big millionaire people that everyone would respect, but they've gone down this hole. Make crime, gambling, exploitation, and fraud are often overlapped. So a friend, in inverted commas, introduces online betting, encourages the loans, shares bank details, and it turns into financial abuse. So there is a natural stream. So you might think it's just this bit, but it will lead to one thing, then the next thing, and the next thing. There's a grooming pathway, if you like, for there to get more and more and more money out of you and make you more and more vulnerable, more and more scared. Well, what you just done there was illegal. So I'll have to report you to the police if you don't do this. And there's all these ways that they use to drag you in. So the emotional impact on the individual, needless to say, can be absolutely huge. Victims may feel shame, confusion, self-blame, fear of losing the friend in inverted commas, and so they have this loyalty to the exploiter because they don't want to lose that friend. Now, if they're we have quite a lot of adults, especially young adults, where they're trying to get them to live independently, sort of thing that frightens the living bejeebers out of me. They've suddenly got this guy who comes round every Thursday, benefit day, brings the food, couple of cans of beer, and they sit and watch TV together or play a game or whatever. Obviously, it's then now you can buy food and have it delivered. They're on their phone, then they're in. Oh, should we order McDonald's? Should we get one of those? You can do it on your phone, can't you? Yeah, I can do that because that's what friends do, isn't it? Yeah. And so for them, that person is their friend. It may be the only contact that they're having with the outside world in some situations. And so to then doss them in or have them taken away because, you've noticed that they're exploiting that person and you're saying you've got to get rid of them, for them to get rid of their only friend can be a massive thing. And they're not seeing that what they're doing is bad. It's like, no, they're my friend, They bought a can of beer round. Yeah, but how many then did you have to buy? But that's all right, isn't it? Because that's what friends do. And so they can be really, really loyal to that person who is exploiting them. And it's really can be very hard for them to back down and realize what it is and have it really shown to them that it's a problem. So there are real barriers to the disclosure, which is what the perpetrators rely on, especially when they see someone who is vulnerable. They may not recognize that they're being exploited. Fear of getting into trouble, fear of losing independence, struggle to explain events clearly, worry that they won't be believed. And so it's a big step to acknowledge that they're in trouble with something and they don't know how to get out. So empathy-based language is really important when you're having these conversations. Don't go down the route of, oh, how could you have been so stupid? You must have seen that. Or why on earth are you doing this? This is ridiculous. So as we discussed in the previous trainings, the way that we approach it, the language that we use when we're trying to approach these situations to enable them to feel safe enough to disclose is not about pointing a finger and going, I can't believe you got yourself into this mess. It's right. Okay, let's be clear. They're the ones that are causing the problem, not you. And we're here to help you. We understand it's really hard, but everyone here loves you and we're going to get through this together. All right. It's very much about an empathetic response. Otherwise, you won't get anything out here. So how parents and carers can reduce the risk of all of those things. Open conversations about friendships and start those as early as you can. Okay, what a good friend is, what a bad friend is. Teaching safe and unsafe friendships is important. Making sure that friends come to your house when you're there, and start that situation quite early on. Um, if they get invited out for to go bowling or whatever, always drop them off, always get there early to pick up so you can go and spend 10 minutes with them. You think about the bowling alley situation. So if the pickup time is 1/2 past, get there at 10 past, go in early and say, oh, I was in the area, I just thought I'd pop in. How's it going? So you get to know these people that your kids are hanging out with. I've got a real bugbear about skate parks. Never let them go to skate parks on their own. We've still sadly seen too much of it. But it's those sort of spaces, and they will be targeting. They're, like I say, they're clever people. They're not stupid. Bring friends back to your house for sleepovers and playing games, gaming meetups and what have you, rather than them going to somebody else's. Create your space as being the space, because then you can keep an eye on what it is that's going on. Discuss money safety early. That is very much about going back to the previous training. We covered money safety quite a lot there, about keeping their money safe. Trouble is, nowadays it isn't just about carrying cash. Their phones, Apple Pay, bank cards, they're after all of them, and if you teach your children to say, well, I haven't got my bank card, they'll go, well, you must have it on your phone with your Apple Pay. If you can avoid putting Apple Pay on their phones until you're really comfortable that they're safe, I would definitely go there, because then if they haven't got their card, they can't do anything, right? And they can show that Apple Pay is not on their phone, and it does keep them a little bit safe, so be aware of that. Using clear literal language about explaining things. As we've said, most of the financial structures are devised for neurotypical brains, and that's not going to work for us. That's why so many things go wrong. So it's about creating systems that work for your particular individual and being able to join them together. And budget sheets and those sort of things are not necessarily going to work in the same way, and it's finding a way that makes sense for them. Practice role play scenarios. So practice what to say. Like we were saying about the phone, having the special letter or number for them to press to send as a really quick text, so that they know that they've got someone that's then going to respond to the very discreet help call, and get them to practice that. Always give them some key things to respond to if certain things are said to them, that they say XYZ, and practice those, because often where that executive functioning comes in, they'll see something coming towards them, they're like, whoa, this isn't safe and I need to get out of here, but they don't know what to say. So they need some set things to get out of the situations, and also how to respond to people that are bullying them or pushing them for money or pushing them to go and get money out of a cash point machine. Those things become crucial. Monitor sudden financial changes. So keep an eye. I know it reaches a point where they're teenagers, I can't keep looking at their bank account. Keep looking at their bank account would be my thing. All right. Or encouraging them to, it's a habit to share their bank balance with you. All right. Or that you have got access to be able to log into their banking details on their phone or a laptop, so that you can keep an eye on it. As we've already said, think about your language. Empathetic, supportive, rather than judgmental, pointing fingers. When you think about it as well from an ADHD perspective, the rejection sensitive dysphoria will also kick in if all you do is criticize, and that will just mean they'll shut down even more. Also start role modeling how you keep yourself safe. If you're constantly buying lottery tickets and scratch cards and what have you, you're role modeling the gambling. If you're role modeling it, where you're not keeping track of your money once a week, if you're role modeling all these things, they matter. All right. So it's very easy to think, well, it's their problem. You need to take a step back and think, well, what am I teaching them by how I manage these situations? Am I always on a gambling app when the football's on? Like I say, are you buying scratch cards? Are you playing the fruit machine, gambling apps on your phone and getting excited when you win. All of those things matter. Children soak these up as normal behaviors, right? So just be careful of the message you're sending out. So how educators and coaches can help. Notice the power imbalances within a family. It's really interesting with the work that we do. We often see that where the power is, and where that coercive control is coming from, where someone's got control over that person's money, and what we need to do about that, around helping them see that it's coercive control and how we help to move them forward, to give them the strength and support system in place where they happen to be, about what those next steps are. Watch for group exclusion. This is very much one for schools where there's the group that they were hanging out with has basically disowned them. There'll be a reason. Always ask for the reason. What's going on here? And that's about the empathy stuff and visuals to help unpack a situation. Encourage buddy systems. So when you know you've got people that they're hanging out with who are good people, they're not trying to manipulate them or control them or move them, creating buddy systems, making sure that when they're out together, they've got each other's backs, that they're not going to leave somebody on their own. That's why it's really helpful to bring friends round to yours, and keep those relationships really open and under your radar so you can see what it is that's going on. But even with adults, being able to create the buddy systems and watching with group exclusion is something to look for when you're coaching, talking about their wider friendship groups and how that works. Keeping that as one of the things that you have a conversation about when you're talking to them, because you can start to spot then if there's any changes going on in the background, or all of a sudden they're feeling safer with you and they're letting a little bit of information slip into the conversation. So it's easier for you to pick stuff like that up. Teaching digital literacy is one of those lovely statements. There's a word missing there, guys. What is it? All right. It's teach neurodivergent digital literacy. All right. When we're doing this, it's going to be interesting when we start doing this as in face-to-face training, rather than virtually, to see whether they will spot that. That's why we haven't put it in. So teach neurodivergent digital literacy, not just digital literacy. If you just keep trying to teach them how to manage their money the same as everybody else, then this is not going to work. Create and safe reporting channels and document concerns is really, really important. Teaching key safety skills. Teach explicitity, ask them for what words are, like we said, about what real friendships looks like. Consent and boundaries, because like we said, it could start with one thing and lead into all sorts of other things around consent and boundaries. It's a very, very vulnerable space. How to say no safely. All right, just no and walking off potentially can lead to big problems, and helping them really understand what the rate is. Like I said, using the phone, the magic phone system of help, is not to be underestimated. Helping them to recognize manipulation. Choice flow charts are really helpful with that, and it would have you sitting at the top, and it'll be if this and this happens, that's good, but if that and that happens, that's manipulation. To help them start to identify it. If you just talk and don't draw, that can be a problem. Online privacy basics, keeping their passwords up to date, not letting people have their PIN numbers, all of those sorts of things are crucial. They're not little things, it's teaching them that they're big things, and they're really important that they follow the rules, and that it's okay to report those concerns. All right, that you are going to support them. They're not going to get told off. They're not being stupid. They're not being silly. It's a neurodivergent issue, not a failing on their part. So practical scripts to teach. For example, I don't share my bank details. I need to check with my parent or carer. I'm not comfortable with that. No, rehearsal brings confidence. That's why we say role model it, practice it at home. Let them see you doing it with the adults in the room to practice these sorts of things. So they just become normal phrases. They're not things that are weird. So now thinking about your family or equally your clients, all right, based on what you know, how can you change things? Looking at the 4 blocks, what do you want those around you to understand? All right, is it that you're struggling with being able to visualize outcomes. You're struggling with understanding the language that's being sprouted at you. Are you looking for that dopamine hit, but you're getting that dopamine hit at the moment from someone that isn't doing you any good? Therefore, what are those other green dopamine things that are going to help you move forward? And equally ones that don't involve gambling. And what do you now need to understand, to do, to understand them? All right, because you're one of the great things from a neurodivergent perspective within families, we now know the genetic makeup of that. We know that if you've got a neurodivergent child, there's a good 80 to 90% chance that it will fall into your lap as well, depending on where the autism and ADHD is. So these things and skills that you're learning potentially for your child are also, you're learning them for yourself too. All right. And those of you that are here looking at this from an adult perspective, all of these things are just as relevant to you as adults as they are to children. It's just about diversifying them, bespoking them to you as an individual. So reporting pathways in the UK, for example, are police, 101, 999, immediate in danger, obviously. Organisations around action fraud, local safeguarding teams, the school designated safeguarding lead can be a good person to speak to as well. The emotional wellbeing teams within your workplace, speaking to social care, and the gambling support services, of which there are now more because the government actually enforced that you can't run a gambling industry without you having put money into support services. Bit stable door horse situation. Shutting the stable door after the horse has bolted, but it was better than nothing at all. But there is some places there to go to. So to finish, what to do if you're suspecting exploitation? 1, stay calm. All right. Avoid the blame, as we've said all the way through this. Gather your information. Become detective. Secure the finances. Put spending limits on their apps so they're only allowed to spend so much. All of those things are important. Mind you, if you've got tech-savvy kids, they probably know how to take it off. But it's helping them see as well that these things are important. Report concerns. Like I say, if it's a colleague at work, then report it to your concerns to the wellbeing team. If it's about a child, report it to school and the designated safeguarding lead. They have to act. All right. And then seek specialist help and specialist support. I have to say, if you look in your local area about where the support services are, they are there. All right. You just have to do a little bit of digging sometimes. But to be fair, the support services are pretty much everywhere now because they've had to be. So please use them. So, and supporting that emotional recovery afterwards, like we said, about where they feel they've lost their friend. You need to validate those feelings. Avoid I told you so. It's all about trauma-informed support. And there's some great models and trainings if you're interested in looking at that to be able to go and do those. Rebuild those safe social networks for them. Find safe places for them to go with them if necessary, and seek professional counselling if needed. Build their self-esteem, help them with that financial literacy from an ND perspective, helping them be more assertive, the community connection, so looking at the community that they're actually hanging about in, is it safe? Teaching them safe digital habits, teaching yourself safe digital habits at all. The number of people that have just got one password for everything, those days are gone, folks, I'm afraid. Trusted adults network is important, and I think that's where you can sometimes find that within your workplace. So as I say, seek out your emotional wellbeing teams, and if they haven't had information about this, then get them to watch the videos because they need to be on the case. So some key takeaways, and then we'll stop for questions. Exploitation often looks like friendship, and that's why our community is extremely vulnerable because they won't spot it unless someone's helping them to spot it. Gambling harm is not just a money issue. For us, it is a neurodivergent and emotional issue, and it is an emotional issue for lots of people. But we've got this other layer of how our brain works and what causes it to be difficult. Fraud relies on urgency and secrecy. So if there's an urgency aspect to it and asking you to be secret, that is a very big flag that this isn't okay. Early intervention often prevents that escalation, which is why we want people to talk about it now. And the open communication is protective, okay? Constantly talking about it and keeping people safe, making it normal to talk about these things, to allow people to feel confident about doing the share. Examples of resources are us, obviously, National Autistic Society, Gambling Support Helplines, Action Fraud, NSPCC, Childline potentially could go in there, Safeguarding Partnerships. We're all here to help. That list, I could probably spell about 4 slides, but Google, all right? AI has some uses here. And looking at this, it's like, here is a short scenario. Alec is 16, autistic, has a new friend who visits often. Money is missing. Alex says they're just helping their friend. So it's like, think about what are the warning signs. There's quite a few in there, right? And what would you say to Alex? And who should be informed, right? These things are important. That looks quite a tame little statement, doesn't it? But what were the signs there that something wasn't okay? New friend, coming around a lot. Money's going missing. Alex has been told you're helping me because I'm your friend. All right, that message is there. And so it's then unpacking that for Alex. Remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. These things don't get solved overnight. This is how we can help you. As we said, contact CFCS for our support. If you feel it would be useful, they will do an assessment to see whether or not they're able to send you in our direction, and for us to be able to provide that support for you. But there's also other places where we can help. And this is how you can keep in touch with us directly. Thank you, Kath. Or Jade, whoever's doing the next bit.
It's me. Thank you so much, Annie. That, I mean, as always, so useful. And, you know, I just feel like it brings up so many issues. And so, I mean, apart from just, you know, you've kind of done just the reminder about all the kind of fraud and risks and the kind of dangers out there, as well as so many things that are particular to the neurodivergent community. There's a couple of questions in the chat, which I'll go to first. I've got a few as well if we've got some time left, but I'll read out the first question for you, Annie, which is, as someone with ADHD, I used to have a bad tendency for overbuying lottery tickets, which I think was largely due to the unlikely dream that winning a large sum of money would remove the worry over the complicated world of finance, loans, insurance, pensions, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think this is another common reason for our susceptibility to gambling?
Yes, I think lottery cards, the scratch cards can be a bugger, if I'm honest, excuse my French. But they're sitting there at the till, they're just staring at you while you're waiting in a queue. Do you know what I mean? And so I think if it's something you're susceptible to, with the scratch cards, then definitely find a different way to shop. So maybe you're not seeing them all the time you go in. I think the little supermarkets tend to be, you know, like we've got a little Tesco's at the top of our road and they're just staring at you when you go in the door. So if it's something you're susceptible to, it is about thinking, where do I shop? How do I involve that? Doing things differently. It's a bit like when you're coming out from an alcoholic situation. You don't go and if you're looking to cure that, you don't go back into a pub and sit and have a coffee. It's like, how do I change how I shop? And maybe you start shopping online rather than you know, popping into your local shop so you don't see them as often.
I think as well, Annie, part of the question here was about the kind of the hope that a big win, however unlikely, would help to remove all those other anxieties in their life about the whole kind of complicated financial things
Yeah,
that we have to
I
sign up
I
for, like loans,
agree. I think
insurance, and pensions, and whether that kind of wanting to escape from those things kind of makes somebody with autism
it's
and or
almost like you're
ADHD
looking
more
for a quick
susceptible.
fix thing, and
Yeah,
we can understand why. I think all of us perhaps have been there at one time or another, to be really, really fair about it.
yeah,
But it's like we said with that last slide about it's a marathon, not a sprint. all right, just and lots of people that have won huge sums of money, big lottery wins and what have you, all of that money will go quite quickly because they haven't got the baseline of the work that we were talking about needs to be done first. And so the big sum of money sound like they're going to be the big solution, but very often they're not, and they can create their own problems. And like I say, if you haven't got the foundation blocks in to actually change things underneath it, you'll just go straight back to where you were in the first place. So I do appreciate the attraction of them, but they're not necessarily going to solve the problem that we think they will.
Thank you. I've got another one here. I'm going to read it out. I have read it previously, and I'm not certain if I quite understand the question, but you might understand it. And if I don't, perhaps the person who's written it could kind of put something else in the Q&A. How does the making the space your home work if there are other people who are neurodiverse? Their parents may want to do the same thing, making it difficult to navigate and unintentionally cut them off from friendships.
I think what you're trying to say is, how do we bring the friendships into the home if you've got neurodivergent adults who can't cope with the friendships themselves? I think I'm not saying it's easy, all right? And I think it's something, if you're a young person and that's feeling uncomfortable, then it is something to go and speak to school about and look at how you can navigate those friendships at home. I think one of the things that they're doing this training has lifted off for us is we've got some real work to do here about helping schools and social care and what have you really understand this stuff, because this is not something that's being touched anywhere that we can see at all. So there's some work to do. I think I appreciate the question. Have I got a good answer for you right now? Probably not, actually. Like I said, we're still trying to piece this together, but I do appreciate what you're saying. I think it is a problem, especially if you've got neurodivergent adults who perhaps don't like having other people in their homes and this sort of thing. So maybe it's about looking at different ways to do that. I haven't got a magic answer at the moment, I'm going to be really honest with you, but I do understand the issue that you've got, and it is something that I would go and speak to someone that you trust in school, a trusted adult in school, and say, how am I going to navigate this?
Thank you, Annie. We've got a couple more minutes, so I'll if anyone's got a last question for Annie, do put it in the Q&A, but I've got a fair few. So one of the things that's just come up for me, I've made a note about, Annie, right at the end of the session, almost when you were doing the signposting, because one of the things that I know we talked about in the first session was about how people who are neurodivergent are very, very susceptible to gambling harm because of the way brains work.
Yep.
And I was interested about how well gambling support services are able to support people who are neurodivergent.
I'd be gobsmacked if they know. All right. Like I said, I think we've took a bit of a lid off can of worms with some of this, to be honest. And I think we had one question, didn't we? I think in the first training, which was, are we as an organisation talking to any financial institutions at the moment? And it's like, no, because it had bypassed us, to be fair, that there was a need there, and we've realised that there is a massive need that needs to be addressed. So, and it'll be the same with the gambling teams, the same with all the support networks. We'll never be out of a job. Yeah, I think is where I am. That the reach of where these types of information need to go is huge.
And the other thing, I may not be very clear about this because it's just something that was kind of mulling over while you were talking. You were talking about the kind of the loyalty to the exploiter and people's kind of need to be in relation. I mean, well, we all need it, don't we? But sometimes people are more isolated, and the kind of importance about being non-judgmental about kind of perhaps unwise choices. But I was thinking about that in relation to, we talk a lot, don't we, nowadays about well, particularly women, but not only women in violent relationships.
Yep.
And I think now as a society have got to a point where we would never be saying to somebody who'd been in a violent relationship, what on earth were you doing getting into that relationship in the first place? There would, the kind of victim blaming thing has kind of gone from that sort of aspect, hasn't it?
Yes.
And I wonder how we can move kind of as a society away from the victim blaming in some of these other unwise relationship choices?
I think so much of it is about what we're doing here, getting the word out about what it is. An awful lot of shaming comes from not understanding what it is. And we see an awful lot of the those types of relationships will happen with adults with learning disabilities, for example, and young people with learning disabilities who are very vulnerable, just the same as from a neurodivergent perspective. And that anger, I think some of that anger can come directed towards those people. What were you thinking? Do you know? I mean, what on earth? And it's come from fear and concern and maybe guilt as well. Why didn't I should have spotted that? Do you know what I mean? I didn't, and now look where we are. And so there's a bit of transference of guilt and what have you that goes into those rejections. How do we stop it? It is all about getting this information out there. And I think where we're stuck at the moment is there's a lot of information about. A lot of it is great, but some of it really, really isn't. And in the same way that we're talking about spotting a bad friend, spotting a bad information about autism and ADHD at the moment is getting harder and harder and harder. So because there's just so much of it there. And so using platforms and you know influencers or what have you that you trust and other people trust is where it goes with that. So that you're getting good information. And we, like the organizations that we partner with, the amount of due diligence we do to make sure that they've got the same value systems of us, that we're all talking from the same sheet, we do a lot before we would engage in that space. And I think there needs to be more of that, actually, so that we don't want to send people to another organization. They're in more problems than they were in the first place. And I know you guys feel exactly the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's hard. It's tough out there at the moment. It's not just here in the UK either. It's tough everywhere. There are some countries that are streets ahead of us with this stuff, but they're still very much in the minority, would be right.
Well, yes. Well, I mean, it's all so very interesting, and it clearly, I feel like, these 3 sessions so interesting, so helpful, and as you say, they've opened a whole load of can of worms. So there's potential for more kind of discussion around this at a later date. But thanks, everyone. I know we've gone very slightly over, so thanks to those of you that have managed to hang on till the bitter end. If you are interested in support from Annie's organisation, do make an application to the charity through the for a wellbeing conversation, and we can talk to you about that then. But for now, thanks very much indeed, and we'll see you soon. Bye bye.